for the last panel discussion is really kind of trying to get you involved as much as possible and opening up the floor. I will kick off with a couple of questions, a bit slightly trying to differentiate. And let's start with a quick introduction on the panel. So we have today Rami from Tele2, who has been presenting also about differences on the MNO strategies. Then we have Monsen, is that the right pronunciation? Sorry for that if I haven't done that correctly. Then Shane Rooney is there as well. And then we have Dennis and a new one, which is Alex, joining as well. So what I would like to kick off is with a quick question on the reminder at where the industry is and the Gartner hype cycle, as you all know. And it's topping, IoT M2M is somehow on the top of it. And I would like to ask you, what do you think when we meet 3 years from now, are we going to see the growth forecasted at the moment, or what is your expectation? So hands up for people who believe in the market and in the figures. So what do you think? What's happening? So maybe it's 10-20% of all people in the audience. And I would then hand over to the panelists and ask you the question. So what is holding us possibly back if we meet in 3 years and we are a bit disappointed about the market figures and our business as such? What do you foresee? And please do not use standardization. That's excluded from that question. What do you think could hold us back as an industry? How about Rami? Do you want to start?
Should I start? Yeah, that's always nice to start, right? Well, I think that there are many things that will hold us back. Standardization. I think, you've been here during 2 days and you've heard a lot of fantastic things that many different companies are doing in many different areas of IoT. But I think, at the end of the day, there isn't a single company that can offer an end-to-end solution by themselves. There are many different parts of an end-to-end solution. So being able to set up the right type of partnerships that actually work, where the technology works, where the commercialities between those partners actually work, where you bring value to customers is going to be a big, big driver. If we can make that happen, then we will see some of those numbers coming into reality. Personally, I don't like looking at the numbers. I like making customers happy, and if we do that, then we will see those numbers in the future. So I think partnerships is key here.
Okay, very good. Next one.
I think the barriers that might stop us from getting to where we want, I agree with Rami on a number of them. I think it's fear, and fear from uncertainty that exists. Both in terms of the data and the privacy of that data that is generated, as well as the business models that are going to be used moving forward. So as part of the industry, we owe it to our customers to make sure that their data and their personal information is protected and provide them with that assurance that that's the case. And in terms of the business models, again, we need to find ways of making it easier and less painful for customers to adopt the technology. The easier it is, the easier it is for it to get adopted and used. That's my view of that.
Thank you very much.
So again, I'm Alex Mashinsky. I'm with Novatel Wireless, and we're a manufacturer of hardware in the United States. We've seen a lot of programs initiated, but the rate of adoption is just not there. So I think the software is probably 2 to 3 years behind schedule in most programs. And what we're seeing again and again is a lot of goodwill, a lot of intent from management to implement improvements and increase efficiency through the use of IoT hardware and software implementations. But these things are either deployed late or after they're deployed, you're seeing only 10 or 20% implementation. So I think the industry as a whole needs to get to a higher level of adoption and really squeeze those efficiencies out of these programs, because without that, we're not going to see the numbers hit.
So for me personally, IoT at the moment is a bit like a cause. We've got to do IoT. It's a subject, and we have these applications that sit on these streams of data, and this is really great, and we want to make value from it. I think the inherent success will be when we stop talking about IoT as some sort of cause, and it gets integrated in wider forms of IT. And I think the first step is to, when we start to get clever enough where we can interoperate an application layer, I think if we get there very quickly, I think the acceptance and the value will be much greater, I think.
I think, hopefully, if it works. Yeah. For me, it's more of a basic thing in terms of, I think I hinted earlier on as to what actually IoT is, and do I need it? I don't think that's particularly clear from a market perspective. Yeah, sure, there are ad hoc products that are out there today, but certainly not at the scale that is predicted or expected. So for me, it's classical marketing. What is it? Why do I need it? And then we can say in 3 years' time, yeah, we got it right or we got it wrong.
Okay, thank you very much. So I am obviously raising that question to kind of stimulate us also to think about what could go wrong. Any comments from the audience? Do you want to comment as well? What do you think, what could go wrong in 3 years from now if we do not meet our expectation in the sales forecast? Any comments or questions on that? I think it's very important as we as an industry obviously need to be positive about what's going to happen and how we see the market developing. I can just say from the Cumulocity point of view, just to we have been exceeding our market figures for this year by far, and we are quite excited, and I believe we can make that happen, but the forecasts are extremely challenging, obviously. There's every year double or triple of revenues and much more connected devices. But anyway, so any other comments or questions related to what could happen, what could go wrong? Yeah, there's one more.
I thought I could do without the microphone, but that's all right. One thing I'd be curious to know what you think about is what impact does education have on our forecasts related to Internet of Things? And I mean, we do talk a lot about what's happening in the industry, but what about, down the stream in, education-wise, in universities, how we train students on this, how we change the mindset of the new generation? So would this impact?
That's a very good question. Would someone want to?
I think, is it working? Yes, you can hear me. Well, I think the problem here is that, first of all, it's not a problem. First of all, I think we absolutely should interact with universities. We should absolutely interact with the education system as a whole. The interesting thing, though, is that the people that are in the education system predominantly are much, much younger. And they are, I refer to this as, me being sort of the IT immigrant, and they being sort of the IT inhabitants. They are, if you look at anyone between 15 and 25 today, when they handle an iPhone or any sort of PC or data in general, this is extremely natural to them. So I think what we will see is that out of the entire educational system will come a lot of great ideas. And I can only speak for Tele2 here, but we interact a lot with the universities and with the educational system in general, because of course that's one way for us to be innovative. So to continue to interact with that part of the society is extremely important for us.
So that was a very good question. Currently in the UK, a number of universities have started major projects around IoT and innovation using the IoT as a basis of that innovation. Currently, a number of them are using Aeris services in the UK for the development of their solutions, and we are actively involved in terms of trying to understand what it is that they're trying to do. And some of those guys who are doing those kind of research are also looking for markets to take their research work out into the market and making it available. So yeah, it's there at the moment.
Yeah, we have offices both in India and in China, and then when I compare that to the United States or England here, where we have an office, I could tell you that the level of readiness of students that are coming out of university is much higher, for example, in China. You know, the level of training we have to put in to get them up to speed is, I would say, half of what it would take for college students here or in the US. So it's really, I think we're behind the ball, and I agree with you 100% that that's definitely a topic that needs a lot of attention.
Personally, I'm not sure it's a topic that needs attention from universities, academia. I think, you know, a lot of the funded programs in universities, big ones and small ones, is about the emergence of new technologies and new things. So it's not really, is it really a matter of giving them training, leading them, or is it them leading us? Perhaps a little bit of both. What I will say, though, as I said beginning, we're treating this subject as if it's some sort of cause. It's not. You know, we've had connected devices for a long time. You could argue that a server is a connected device, effectively, and it's been around for a long time. So I think it's not that's the real challenge. I think we have academia helping us move forward. I think the challenge is how we integrate it with the rest of the IT environment. Not treat it as a single stream or separate single streams of things as if it's somehow, you know, magic happening in front of us. It's not. It is a natural evolution of our extension and the use of tools, you know, digital tools as they were, and the sensory path that we use to enable ourselves to work that. So I think academia probably got a better hand on this than most companies, to be honest with you.
I would agree with Dennis. I think this is naturally evolving anyway, because this is the digital generation. They just don't think about that. You know, it will evolve. It's there. I wouldn't worry too much about the education aspect of it. If you go from a school level, I suppose maybe access to a lot of the technologies may be an issue. But certainly, even when you go to university, definitely that from a technology point of view, from a research point of view, that's all available. There's multiple solutions going on right now. But from younger people's perspective, they just take it as normal.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe one comment as well as in the UK, the Raspberry Pi Foundation comes up to my mind exactly about listening to your question. I guess they're doing a great job in terms of bringing back skills we have actually forgotten about in Europe, like doing hardware engineering, open source hardware engineering, and embedded computing engineering. That's something at least we see on the market. It's kind of dropping off the teaching schedule from universities, and therefore we are actively actually supporting the Raspberry Pi Foundation, because we really think that's a required skill in the Internet of Things going forward. Good, so let's continue with the panel discussion on the possible disruptions during the next 2-3 years. So one per panelist, one disruption per panelist, not more. So what do you think? What is happening next 2-3 years? You know, in terms of technology, in terms of new players, in terms of new domains or verticals or whatever you come up. Yeah? So how about we start this time from the other side of the table? Yeah?
I was just thinking, give you a chance to think. I'm not quite sure exactly. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, we've seen a lot of talk about big data and analytics that is happening. I'm not quite sure I could pick out a particular one at this point, being totally honest with you, that I could see as a major disruption.
Okay, fair answer, yeah? Any?
Yes.
I mean, you don't need to answer if you feel it's not something
I can object, can I? I think, you know, there's an opportunity for, I don't know, adaptive data or small data to become a very significant part of the decision networks that we develop. And having, you know, arguably these streams of information and data that connect to various different aspects of our digital physical world, I think there's an opportunity for these to create sort of central masses around information that we haven't had before. And I think it's unclear at the moment whether that will be the case. But you know, what is big data? I think that's just large buckets of descriptions of information that we put ontologies around. And I think that small data, adaptive stuff, can be relevant, and I think technically speaking, that may disrupt the way we use and represent information in the coming years. But sooner rather than later, I think it may surprise all of us.
So I want to talk about one disruption that already happened and one that we think we're going to see. So if you, how many people here use Uber? Right, 2 devices talking to each other, a new application that didn't exist a few years ago. Fastest creation of wealth in the history of startups, $20 billion in 5 years valuation. So if you look at that, that was enabled because everybody has a smartphone and the cloud became so cheap and so on. So if you translate that into something else, for example, New York City, just this is a project we're doing with the city, 10,000 payphones are going to be high-density Wi-Fi hotspots. So basically everywhere in New York City, you're going to get extremely high-speed Wi-Fi for free, which enables a completely new set of applications that were not possible before, right? So it's that kind of infrastructure that bypasses the traditional wireless network that creates a barrier for entry and from a cost basis that will enable a flood of new applications, right? So we think that's an example of a disruptive application with thousands of developers who are jumping in it already in anticipation of the service being launched next year. So we're thinking that as infrastructure costs are reduced, you're going to see a whole new generation of things that no one thought are the killer apps, and these things are going to be pushing both the hardware and the software vendors to deploy services.
So I wish I knew.
Me too, yeah.
But again, I apply my data analytic to what I see, and I project a trend. So what we are seeing is that in terms of emergence, we see manufacturing and health sectors as 2 very strong emergence of uptake of IoT moving forward. But as I was talking earlier, it's the service aggregators. As we move towards everything as a service, this is a personal view, I see the emergence of the same way we had content aggregators in the past, we will see the emergence of service aggregators to make it simpler for services to be bundled together to deliver to the consumers of those services. So those are the areas where I see things happening.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Over to
Rami?
me then, yeah?
Yeah.
So
I
first of all,
guess-
this whole notion of free internet, of free connectivity, I obviously don't agree with, you know, for natural
So
reasons.
what's happening with Tele2? Are you
Yeah,
getting...
you know, I don't know, I
that would
keep
be a
hearing
nice
this.
announcement now, Rami.
Yeah,
Yeah, so-
yeah.
He's worried about his next revenue.
or my job, I don't know. But nevertheless, sooner or later someone will have to pay for it anyway, right? But
The city of New York, then.
yeah, well, there you go. So it's not free. It's just packaged in a different way. Anyway, I see 2 things that will emerge. The first one is we will see something that we refer to as data distribution, because of course everyone has been focusing for many years on data generation, i.e. being able to transmit data from a device or to a device. And now everyone is talking about, okay, what do we do with that data that has been generated? And we talk about big data, and we talk about data analytics, and that's all well and done, right? But when that analytics is done, we have to apply something called data distribution, which is distributing the results of that analysis to a person or a system to make the right decision. So what we will see here is players such as SAP and Salesforce, when they get their act together, venturing into IoT hard to take charge of the data distribution part. So I think that part has been gravely neglected, and I think that's something that we will see in the coming years. So that's the first part. The second thing that I think we will come to see is that today we talk about data as in sizes, kilobytes, a megabyte. The operator comes from the world, how many megabytes per SIM do you want to buy? We're going to move away from size to value, because of course the transaction has a different value depending on what type of application it's actually running. So typical example is if you take a connected dishwasher. Okay. The white goods manufacturer wants to know, because they might have changed business model from selling a product to selling a service, dishwashing as a service. But if that washing machine doesn't communicate that given second or not, doesn't have really a lot of value for the ground service of that specific solution. However, if it is a credit card machine and you're in your taxi and you want to pay and the credit card machine doesn't actually work at that given point in time, you as a customer in that taxi, you will get rather angry. If you apply that same to healthcare, when you talk about people-critical environments, where someone might get hurt if that device doesn't communicate, then it has an even higher value. So what I think will happen is that we will start to categorize these transactions based on value, and there will be a value-driven pricing rather than a data pricing, as an example.
Very well, thank you very much. So my next question would go actually to some of you in the audience related to your presentation. Let's start with Dennis, if I may. Dennis, you were presenting today about an idea related to application, that you kind of made a comment in your presentation that you believe there won't be millions of new applications emerging, but there will be applications morphing. I think you two used the term morphing, applications evolving. So what is the background? What do you think, what is the reasoning for your comment there?
We start as a startup, as an industry. You have specific evangelists and experts that build up are the catalyst for the market growth. But, it's naive to think that if the IoT is a subject, if it is a separate subject, which I'm not sure it is, but it's naive to think that the big companies won't take advantage of that and won't create and integrate it within their existing value chain. Why would you drive, if you're a massive IT company, why would you treat it separately, as if it was a separate business? When ultimately the value of what connectivity of devices and information is something that is relatively same in lots of IT industries. So you would look to connect it. So we have specific applications that help drive out specific streams of information from specific streams of sensors that touch certain areas. But once the interoperability layer is established, I absolutely guarantee you that you'll see conventional IT applications leveraging those resources to the full. That's why I think it will morph into larger applications that already exist today. Because the economics is that larger companies will become interested. It'll be an added value point that they can represent to the market. Why not? So.
Okay, thank you much for the clarification. I just checking here the time. We have 4:10, and I know we run a bit late when we started, but I would like to open now questions actually to the floor, and any comments or questions you would like to raise to the panel. There's one.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Richard Channell from Arqiva. I feel like over the last couple of days you've filled my toolbox with lots of techniques and ideas and solutions. This morning I had to pop across about a mile away across town to talk at a Smart Grids conference to the power industry that are trying to work out how do they transition their traditional networks to deal with renewable energy, which is distributed around the edges of the network, and how do they manage that? And I'm saying, well, a mile away, there's another set of guys who can probably solve your problem. One of the challenges is, right, how do we, that's a real application, they're trying to solve that. And if they're left alone, they'll probably just come up with an M2M solution that's 20 years out of date, when really what we probably need is in the internet of smart grids, where we have microgeneration. One of the challenges around renewables is about the unpredictability of weather, sun, Well, we know we can do that. We know we can do that with the Internet of Things by harvesting data from different sources. And I think we need to kind of, I'd like to really understand how do we bring this industry together with other industries, because there's massive convergence across all sectors, in order to actually deliver real benefits.
Okay, so let me maybe kind of...
He wants to start first.
it's a different pattern, yeah?
Yeah. Well, when
Okay.
you have the answer, you
Very good,
you
yeah.
want to get off first. Well, first of all, there is not one answer to that, number one. Number two, I think this is already happening. IoT, or as it started off as M2M, is not a siloed solution. It's something that goes across an entire organization. And if you did hear my speech, a lot of the conversation that we're having, or I would say most of the conversation that we're having with our customers and partners today, is not about technology. It is about strategy. Because this is changing the essence of how they do business. It's changing how they develop their products. It's changing how they go to market. Now, if you're going to change the way you develop your product and the way you go to market, you have to change your culture. You have to change the way you behave. You have to change the resources that you work that works in your company. So the change is going to be massive. I don't know if I'm answering your question here, but I think...
I think the point here is that the energy companies don't know the art of what's possible.
Yeah.
And it's all very well you understanding the strategy, but they need to be brought into that strategy, and otherwise they're just defining what they want or what they think they want.
But I can only talk for Tele2 here again, but we have a lot of utility companies. As a matter of fact, today we signed a very, very large deal. Can't tell you which country this is, but this is 1.6 million smart meters. These are not small rollouts. We're the prime supplier to the Vattenfall group, which you know is the 4th largest utility player here in Europe. These big companies, E.ON, Vattenfall, and so on and so forth, they are deploying these things en masse, across the board, not only in smart meters, electrical charging posts for electrical cars, or smart grid solutions. So, this is happening as we speak. It's actually one of the verticals that is the most penetrated, that together with automotive. So I would say that it is happening. Sorry to disagree.
No, I just, I was with the power industry this morning, and I get a different feeling.
Yeah.
But the British government, obviously we've got a very regulated industry. The British government has got catapult schemes to try and promote innovation. And I would just say this industry just needs to get close to the energy industry in the UK in order to make the right decisions happen.
I agree. I think we need to get together with not only the utilities industry, but all verticals, actually. That's just one example.
Yeah. Very good. So any other comments? Otherwise, any other questions from the audience? There's one over there.
Hi, I'm Jad Tabit, the company on your map. Question to each one of you. Regarding Google, if we consider Google, do you see Google as a threat for the future of IoT, or as a catalyzer that will help adoption somehow? We've been seeing Google, jeopardizing or cannibalizing some markets. They don't have any short-term revenues obligations, as we all have. So how do you see this?
I'll jump in on that. Google is what's called a frenemy in the United States. It's both a friend and an enemy, so you just have to stay out of the way on the big things, because I think they're going to go after that themselves, but there's going to be plenty of crumbs where if you work well with Google, you're going to, as a small company, you're going to do very well. So, I think right now still everybody's trying to figure out where the big elephants are, and when we figure that out, we're going to be, all racing there. But right now, we don't know where they are. The white elephants, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe actually I give a comment to that as well, because we are offering a cloud service and could be in direct competition to Google type of services. And I think their strength is obviously on the consumer side, no doubt about that. But they're struggling a bit on the business side, as you know. And another one, they're also struggling to understand the difference between Internet and Internet of Things. Here we talk about things. And many of the things we are talking about are not standardized from a protocol point of view, from the data model, from the schema, how you add value and how you generate applications or integration points or dashboards, whatever you want to do with the data. And of course, they have real-time analytics. Of course, they have massive algorithms they can utilize. They have all the cloud computing kind of knowledge. But what they really miss is the vertical industry knowledge we discussed about earlier, and they are currently at least also missing that understanding of the machines and devices and the hundreds or several hundreds of different protocols you will find trying to connect these devices. And I think that's a challenge for them, which they haven't got really around at the moment at least. Yeah.
From an MNO's perspective, of course, it's not if, but when Google is going to become a network operator. So, of course, until then, we see them as a friend. But, you know, you can imagine the peer-to-peer sort of network structure that I'm sure Google is messing around with in their labs. Meaning that every single one of us is going to be some sort of cell station and then transmitting that signal over to the next one that you're actually calling, you know. So sooner or later there will become a MNO foe, but right now we're doing lots of interesting things together with them.
Okay, any other questions or comments? There's one. I think the gentleman in the back was first.
Yeah, I am Upendra from Tech Mahindra. We're working on digital enterprise solutions, as we call, you know, like IoT, pick up the sort of thread and start doing what you can do best as a systems integrator. My question to the panel is about sensors. We heard a lot about data. We heard a lot about other aspects, but human being has these 5 senses which is enabled to do loads of stuff with the brain. And as an industry, are we doing enough in sensing and using, you know, maybe a decentralized brain or capability to manage the sort of input from the sensors? So my question is about, you know, are we doing enough about managing the sensors and the sensing that we're doing in the industry?
Okay, very good. Yeah, why not go ahead? Yeah.
We use a lot of sensors, so I mean, it's amazing how fast the costs are being reduced on all the variety of sensors, including things that used to cost hundreds of dollars that are now provided, again, on your smartphone. Your iPhone 6 has every sensor possible. So all these things are going to be integrated into more and more unique piece of hardware. The chipset is getting cheaper as well. So again, all of these things are propagating through the supply chain and into the applications and into use cases and so on. It just, I haven't, you know, we haven't seen yet the scale, but it's definitely happening. The cost reduction is definitely helping all of that.
So from a sensory perspective, I mean, you know, I talked about the interfaces into the chemical and physical world. So are we doing enough? Don't know. But clearly this sort of capability that's being, this new technology domain that's being built out, clearly is driving some of the material sciences. And I think it will be an increasing attraction for people to create more interfaces into the physical world that we had not before. And in the material sciences is probably going to pick up because of that. So sensors, I'm sure, will drive for more and more. But I think in the materials world, I think this will be a byproduct that they'll consider very, very good for them.
Early on, there was a question about universities. There are 3 universities that currently have got active programs around PhD programs around creation of new type of sensors. So obviously, from academic point of view, there is investment started to come into that as seeing new type of sensing, new material for sensing, as you mentioned, is going to be another angle in terms of making other possibilities come through. And the cost of sensors are coming down, another barrier is coming down. So yeah, I think we will need to have more sensors, and there would be more sensors moving forward.
Okay, very good. So last question, please. I think there was one here, just in front of me. If you can organize a microphone, yeah. Here. Very good. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Eda from Turkcell, Turkey. Actually, my question is to Mr. Mohsen, but I would love to hear your answers, especially Tele2 as an operator too. Who's going to play the role of service aggregator? Because customers are finding their solutions from different providers, sometimes partners of telecom operators or directly from the device manufacturers, and there are different systems working everywhere, like Salesforce, vehicle tracking, energy management, like all kinds of sources. But who's going to play this service aggregator role? Will it be a mobile operator because they have both consumer base and corporate customer base?
So,
what do you think?
So if I understood the question, is that what is the role of the service aggregator and who could be a service aggregator? So obviously the carriers could be a service aggregator. Yeah,
or maybe a system integrator.
Yeah, and that under those circumstances, then the carrier will think about connectivity would be at zero cost because the revenue is generated out of other things.
Yeah,
so Rami would be happy that way.
No, as GSM operators, we don't want to get stuck in connectivity either. We want to create new revenue, so we would be happy to take new roles, I guess, just not to be in the connectivity side.
Sure, but the point about the service aggregator is to try to use the, basically today, if I have a smart home or if I have a car, I have a relationship with my car manufacturer that uses that connectivity to give me things that I want in the car. Yeah? But if my son sits at the back and he's got his own phone and he wants to download something and doesn't want to, he wants to use the facilities within the vehicle, the device that is in the vehicle as a channel for downloading something to watch, but he doesn't want to pay the car manufacturer, he wants to pay Netflix, for example, for his video, he has to have two separate agreements in place. And that becomes very cumbersome. Or you have a smart meter in your house, you already have some sensor that is collecting usage information from your electricity, and you have a sensor from Google that is measuring the heat temperature in your house, but these are two separate things. But you, as this user, I personally would prefer to have a service provider that provides me the combined service and using the data from both to give me added value, yeah? And that's where I think telcos could play a role. I also think systems integrators could play a role in that paradigm. And I also think people like Google can play a role in that. But I still think that the service aggregators haven't really emerged as yet. Yeah. But we need a few things to happen before then.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can I jump in? So the service hub concept is an aggregator for the office, for the environment. So that's a physical instance of service aggregation. But I think that mainly, and you're absolutely right, it's service integrators and outsourcers who are finding themselves in a transformational world themselves. They need to shift their resources and their bodies. They want to survive and grow. So you'll find those conventional service integrators and outsourcers turning towards it because it's a positive area for them to grow into as a combined service offering. But it isn't just about sensors and then IT and stuff. It's about people being at the end of a telephone line, giving answers to questions too. So I think you'll find that the old, larger outsourcing companies within a year or so really picking up gear and going for it, I think.
Okay, so thank you. Do you want to comment? A quick one? I mean,
the cocktails, if you're interested, that is.
Cocktails are still cold, you know, please.
Well, I think, first of all, it's going to depend on many different questions. I think this industry hasn't settled down yet. You know, there are a lot of different companies doing a lot of different things. So I think before we're moving over to these service aggregators, you know, there's going to be cementation of the industry. We can already now see acquisition happening. You know, we see it in the enablement and application layer with Axida and ThingWorx now being part of the same company. We're going to continue to see that across the board, including in the connectivity space, in the system integration space, as well as in the hardware space. So I think that's the first thing that will happen. Then what will happen is that certain operators, depending on their existing strategy, is going to venture into these types of solutions. Other operators will have a different strategy. The Tele2 strategy is very, very clear, and we communicate it over and over and over again. Our goal is to be a horizontal provider of connectivity and connectivity-close solutions, where we bolt on the right type of partner for the right type of application, for example, in the utility space, to deliver best-of-breed solutions together with those partners in that given space. There will not be a provider in a given vertical. You know, we will not see a Google or a Microsoft or a Apple or Samsung in the IoT game. It is not going to happen. There's going to continue to be a lot of different companies working together, delivering an end-to-end solution.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. And I guess one final remark from my side, listening to the not all of the speeches in the 2 days, but many of the presentation speeches. I guess what we see now really happening is the focus towards the end customer requirements, because they're facing massive challenges. Our customers facing massive challenges going forward, because they kind of have an innovation cycle, which is, if you look at the hardware manufacturer, it's 3-5 years. Right? They're building machines, they're building any type of equipment, and now the internet comes to their business domain, and they're facing massive challenges. How can they adapt to it? Because the differentiation happens around the product, because it's a smart product with smart services, supply chain optimization, new business model related to the product, preventive maintenance, condition monitoring. So innovation happens around the product, and they need to totally change their company, and therefore they are driving a lot of business transformation activities at the moment. And at least that's the kind of also the spirit I got during the last 2 days, that we are now really in that mood, and I think that's a good sign for the industry going forward, because we seem to understand the difficulties of our customers taking these new technologies on board. Okay, so that's the final remark from my side. I hand over back to Metin, and thank you very much for the panelists. Give me a hand with them. Yeah?